Why would a billionaire say his hardest dollar to earn wasn't his first million, but a number 100 times smaller? That's exactly what Warren Buffett once admitted. He said the hardest money he ever made was his first $100,000, not his first million, not his 10th million, a number that to a billionaire should have felt like nothing. That sounds backwards. If you have more money, shouldn't it be harder to make more of it? Diminishing returns and all that. But Buffett was pointing at something most people never notice about how wealth actually works. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Your first $10,000 is doing more work for your future than your next $90,000 combined. Not because $10,000 is a magic number, because of what happens the moment you cross it. Let's start with why this matters right now in 2026, more than almost any other point in modern economic history. Interest rates have been higher for longer than an entire generation of new investors has ever experienced. That means the reward for having capital sitting somewhere productive is bigger than it's been in decades. And at the same time, the cost of not having capital, the cost of carrying debt, has also gone up. You're being punished and rewarded at the same time, depending on which side of that first $10,000 you're standing on. So let's define the visible problem first, the one everyone already feels. Most people think building wealth is linear. Work hard, save money, watch the number go up, $1 at a time. If that were true, your 1,000,000th dollar would feel just as hard to earn as your first. But almost nobody who has built wealth describes it that way. They describe a slow, frustrating grind at the start, and then, at some point, things start moving on their own. Ask almost anyone who's crossed into real financial comfort how it happened, and you'll notice the story is oddly similar, years of nothing changing. Then, seemingly out of nowhere, the account starts growing faster than their contributions alone can explain. That gap between what they put in and what showed up is the part of the story nobody teaches you to look for. That on their own part is the hidden mechanism. It's called compounding, and everyone's heard the word, but almost nobody feels what it actually means until they've lived through it. Compounding is simple. Money makes money. Then that new money makes money too. Imagine a snowball rolling down a hill. At the top, it's tiny, and it takes real effort to even get it moving. Most of the snow it picks up in the first few feet barely changes its size, but once it has enough mass, every rotation adds more snow than the last one without you pushing any harder. Your first $10,000 is the effort of getting the snowball rolling. Your next $90,000, the climb to $100,000, is where the hill starts doing some of the work for you. Here's the part almost nobody explains clearly. At $10,000 invested with an average market return of around 7% a year, adjusted for inflation, you're earning roughly $700 a year without lifting a finger. That's not life-changing money, but it's the first year your money outworked several hours of your labor without you showing up for a single one of them. Now follow the money forward. At $100,000, that same 7% is producing about $7,000 a year. At $1 million, it's around $70,000 a year, which for many Americans is close to their entire annual salary. The dollar amount changed by 100 times, but the mechanism didn't change at all. It was already running back when you had $10,000. You just couldn't see it yet because the numbers were too small to feel real. This is the part that trips people up. They assume compounding is something that switches on later, once you're rich enough for it to matter. But the switch was flipped the moment your first invested dollar earned a second one. Everything after that is the same process, just multiplied by a bigger starting number. The person with $10,000 invested and the person with $1 million invested are playing the exact same game. One of them has just been playing it longer. This is why financial educators, banks, and investment firms all obsess over that first stretch of saving, even though it looks the least impressive on paper. Fidelity has publicly stated that reaching your first $100,000 in retirement savings is often the hardest financial milestone most people ever hit, harder than any milestone after it, purely because there's no momentum yet to help you. Think about what that actually implies. The hardest stretch of the entire journey is also the least rewarding one to look at. You put in years of saving, and the account barely seems to move. That mismatch between effort and visible reward is exactly why so many people quit right before the mechanism starts pulling its own weight. So who benefits from you understanding this, and who benefits from you not understanding it? The financial industry benefits either way, honestly. But there's a specific group that profits enormously from people delaying that first $10,000. The entire business model of consumer debt. Credit card companies, for example, do not want you to reach the point where your money is making money for you. They want your money going toward interest payments instead. The average credit card interest rate in the United States has hovered around 20% in recent years. That means while your hypothetical $10,000 invested might earn you roughly $700 a year, $10,000 in credit card debt could be costing you around $2,000 a year just in interest before you've paid down a single dollar of what you actually borrowed. That's not a coincidence of bad luck. It's the entire architecture of how consumer lending is designed to work. The delay in your compounding is someone else's profit, and it's worth noticing how quietly this system operates. Nobody sends you a warning that every year you carry a balance is a year your own compounding never gets to start. The cost isn't just the interest you pay, it's the invisible interest you never got to earn on money that instead went towards someone else's earnings. Now here's where myth crashes into reality. The myth is that wealth building is about big wins, a stock that 10x's, a business that gets acquired, a lucky real estate purchase before prices spike. Those things happen, and they make headlines because they're rare and dramatic. The reality is quieter and far less cinematic. Vanguard has published data showing that the difference between someone who starts investing small amounts in their 20s versus someone who waits until their 30s to start, even if the later starter eventually invests more money overall, is enormous by retirement age, purely because of how many extra years of compounding the early starter had. Time, not talent, is doing most of the heavy lifting. And time only starts working for you once you cross that initial threshold where you actually have money invested instead of money owed. Let's zoom out because this isn't just a personal finance story, it's an economic one. The wealth gap in the United States isn't primarily driven by differences in income. It's driven by differences in what economists call starting capital, the first meaningful chunk of money someone has working for them instead of against them. Research from the Federal Reserve has consistently shown that households in the top wealth brackets didn't necessarily earn dramatically more in salary than middle-income households. What separated them generation after generation was how early their capital started compounding and how much of their income went toward interest payments instead of investments during those critical early years. This is why financial literacy campaigns increasingly focus on that first $10,000 specifically, rather than telling people to simply save more. Because the goal isn't the size of the number, it's the moment the mechanism switches on. Companies understand this dynamic intimately, even if they never say it out loud. Employer retirement matching programs, for instance, are specifically engineered to help employees cross that early compounding threshold faster because companies know that once an employee sees momentum, they tend to keep contributing. It's not just generosity, it's behavioral economics applied at scale. Even the housing market reflects the same pattern at a larger scale. A first-time home buyer's down payment functions almost identically to that first $10,000. It's the friction-heavy stage before the asset starts appreciating on its own, before rising home values start doing work that no amount of extra saving could replicate as quickly. The hardest dollars to save are always the ones that come before the machine is running. So what does this actually mean for you sitting here right now? It means the $10,000 mark isn't a milestone to admire once you reach it. It's an ignition switch. Everything before it is friction. Everything after it is physics. And it raises a question that most financial advice never quite asks out loud. If the first $10,000 matters this much, and the system around us, credit cards, lending, spending incentives, is quietly built to keep people from ever reaching it, then how much of what we call bad luck with money is actually just a very well-designed delay?